Hello, everyone. We are live and welcome to Easy Mode here at Epiphan. We are going to have a great event here today to talk about events, your events, how to upgrade them, how to get a better experience for your events using tools like Epiphan Pearl, like Zoom, and like Catchbox. We've got a great lineup here today and excited to have you all here. So please, if you're watching, say hi in chat. We are watching. I see we've got Michelle from UCLA. We've got our friend Sanoga joining us all the way from Uganda. Great to see you, Sanoga. Anyone else who's here, say hi in chat and let us know where you're joining us from. We've got guests here today from all over the world. In fact, we've got Alexei joining us from Latvia. We've got Dr. Ford joining us from Oklahoma, and we've got Nick joining us from the Pacific Northwest. But before we get to our guests, I'm going to share a little bit of a demo with everyone and get that out of the way early. But I'm just seeing in chat here, I see Fareed from Mississauga. I see Brian from Raleigh. Great to have you, Brian. Who else do we have? Alfonso, all the way from Bakersfield. And it looks like we've got the Tabernacle of Praise Church joining us from Alberta. Welcome, and thanks for being here. Okay, so before we get into introducing some of our expert guests, and we will have an opportunity to interact with our expert guests later in the program as well, I do want to kind of show you guys a little bit of the technology that we'll be demonstrating today. So what I'm going to do, and this is kind of like a real-time thing, is imagine I'm joining you from an event space. I'm actually joining you from my office, but imagine this is your event space in your premise, whether that's a house of worship, whether that's a school, or maybe you work at a company or an organization that has a meeting room or a presentation area in your office where you do your town halls or where you're doing your regular events from. What we want to be able to do is increase the value of that space and make it easier for you to produce your events and create a great experience for your audience and your participants, whether they're in person or whether they're virtual. So in order to do that, it's getting a lot easier every day with some of the new technologies that are available. And when you use a combination of things like Epiphan Pearl and Zoom, and I'll just show you here, for anyone who isn't familiar with Pearl, this is an Epiphan Pearl Mini, and this is kind of like your all-in-one audio video solution for creating events and recording them, streaming them, and getting your audio and video sources to your audience and making it easy for them. So what I'm going to show you first here is how we can sort of connect our remote participants. So I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Bear with me for just a moment here. Okay. What I'll do is I'm going to switch to another layout here in my Epiphan. And you'll see that I've got myself here in a bit of a 4-up layout with some, we'll call them empty guest seats that I've prepared in advance. And I want to start populating some of our guests into this production. And I'm going to do that, in this case, using Zoom. So I'll give you a peek over my shoulder here. Right here in the center of my screen, I've actually got a Zoom call I'm hosting, and all of our participants are joining us in this Zoom call. You can see Nick down here waving. Here's Lance. Here's Alexei joining us from Latvia. I'm going to start bringing them into our production, but we want to actually take them from Zoom and bring them into this nice layout that I've created. So let's start doing that. I'm going to show you how we do that with Epiphan. So if you can see my screen now, I've actually got my Zoom meeting right here. You'll see Epiphan Zoom meeting. So I've paired Epiphan with my Zoom meeting. Why don't I make this a little bigger so it's easier for everyone to see? And if I click into this Zoom meeting, you're going to see all the people who are in my Zoom meeting, all the sources that are available to me. So why don't we start with my colleague Nick, who's joining us from the Seattle area. Let's click start. And you're going to see this using this tool. This is called Epiphan Connect. And what I can do is I can see all of the pearls that I have out there in the world. So I showed you the Pearl Nano earlier. I could have a Pearl 2 device or a Pearl Nano device. I can see all of my devices. And I can just select where I want to send my participant. So I'm going to take Nick. I can choose some quality settings here. Let's go HD. And I'm going to click start. Very simple. Okay. And now Epiphan Connect is going to actually take Zoom and it's going to populate Nick into the guest seat here. Okay. And we should see Nick joining us here in just a moment. And there he is. Nick, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Dan, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for being here, Nick. I want to keep the demo moving, so we'll chat with you in just a moment, but let's get our other participants in here. I'm going to switch back so everyone can see. And how about we add Dr. Lance Ford? Okay, once again, I can see I've created a slot to sit Dr. Ford in here. We're going to go with HD quality, and I'm just going to click start. There we go. And you're going to see we're connected. And now when I switch back to our 4-up layout, there we have Dr. Lance Ford. Hey, how are you today?
I'm great, Dan. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's great to have an expert from Zoom here, and I want to get to talking about Zoom in a few minutes, but we still have one more person to add here. So let's switch back to Epiphan Connect. And I can see in my Zoom meeting, I have Alexei here. Let's grab him. We're going to click start. Okay, and you're going to see we've got Alexei connected, and let's switch back. Okay, Alexei, welcome.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you. Now, don't we look awesome? The four of us, we're scattered across the globe, but through the power of the technologies that are available to us today, we can all interact. We can all be here together. And it's something like this where we have an event. We now have an opportunity to collaborate and engage, regardless of the distance we're from. We're connected with low latency, and we can all interact in real time, which is super cool.
The thing too, I just love about this, Dan, what you just demonstrated is our ability to connect with the technologies we're familiar with. Nobody had to ship a case to anybody or send something special. Everyone's really leveraging the technology they use every day. So I know for myself, it makes it a lot less stressful to join. I can just kind of show up, be present, and try to sit still.
Totally agree with you on that, Nick. And when you're inviting guests to participate in your event, you want to take away as many of the barriers as possible. So if you can give them something as simple as a Zoom link, which everyone is quite familiar with, how to join a Zoom meeting by now, it really just eliminates a lot of those barriers to be able to get people engaged and connected with your events. So I want to kind of switch gears a little bit. Alexei, if you don't mind, I'm just going to come back to you in a few minutes, but I want to talk to Nick and Dr. Ford a little bit about Zoom, and we'll catch up with you and we'll talk Catchbox in a few minutes. Okay.
Sure. See you in a few minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So great to have you both here. And I sort of wanted to get into a little bit more depth on some of the solutions that Epiphan and Zoom have and how we kind of work well together in terms of being able to deliver and level up people's events and deliver a greater experience. So maybe I'll start with you, Nick, and you've been around a lot of audio video technologies in the event spaces. What are some of the key concepts that in 2023 event planners and organizations need to be thinking about to deliver a great event experience for people?
Well, first off, I think we need to reframe what an event is. An event is anytime you want somebody on stage broadcasting or sharing their story or their organization's story or some communication to a group of people, to an audience. And I think that's where, a great professor will turn a lecture into an event. I think about my fondest professors in college. They knew how to have a little bit of that razzle dazzle showmanship, different, movements and things. And now, as I think 20 years later, what technology brings us, it's given us this ability to connect, but we've lost the richness of what the experiences really were like when we were together as humans. And so, what do we bring to the table? We bring simplicity. And that's the big reframe here, is that historically events are a big word and they're scary and intimidating, but we make it for anybody to create a great event, create a great experience for them to share their story. It starts with our Pearl products and the ability for just to connect with whatever you've got. And that just of me easing the fear of how do I set this thing up? How do I get it to work? It's simple with Epiphan. We make it really easy.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nick. And maybe I'll switch over to Dr. Ford. Dr. Ford, you are an expert with Zoom, and I know that you sort of specialize in education spaces, and in many cases that may involve events that are happening at schools or for students and teachers and learners. Can you tell me a bit about how Zoom enables some of that, and some of the pedagogy that you are thinking about when you're trying to create a great sort of engagement experience for an event?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love how Nick kind of kicked off the concept of an event. If you've got a message and you're willing to get on the stage and present it, you've got an event. I mean, that boils it down for me. And fortunately or unfortunately, many colleges, universities, K-12s across our great nation and beyond don't necessarily have all the people they would like to have at the event physically located at their facility. They need to be able to branch out a little bit. They need to be able to bring those folks in. And in some instances, those folks don't want to sit still as a part of their conversation, right? They want to be able to get up. They want to be able to get around. They want to Nick's point, bring other things in. So what Zoom brings to that table of education is the increased demand that educators are seeing, I think, globally. Oops, sorry about that focus there. The educators are seeing globally for high flex and hybrid learning opportunities. And that simply means that students have options when it comes to how they participate in class. Nick also capitalized on this challenge of not everybody can be in the room, so that we sacrifice some things in relationships. We have got to be proactive in making these events experiences that solicit individualized and differentiated feedback from each of, in my case, my learners. And I've been a classroom teacher for 30 years. It's not a matter of just watching everybody's head bob. It's really a matter of in real time getting feedback from them, providing that feedback to myself and their peers, and then morphing or shaping the evolution of the event so that we can address those needs and those questions. That's quality teaching. That's what makes people think they're engaged. It's what makes them feel like they're there. That's how you build a relationship with people. And Zoom allows me to do that in a variety of ways, Dan. From the chat that we've already encouraged people to ask questions today, to polling, to whiteboarding, but the ability to bring Epiphan alongside of that and magnify that message with peer teachers, with peer presenters in that environment and give it the professional look that you guys can provide is absolutely essential to what people expect now as they engage with online learning.
That's awesome. And I think, what's cool is, I don't want to bury the lead here. Like, you kind of were able to stand up from your desk, move around, take advantage of the space you have. I can see you've got a lot going on in your space there. But one of the things that I think is a cool concept is the idea of being able just to capture all of those video sources that you might have in an event room, right? So, we typically think of, okay, we need a camera, right? But when you have an audience in a space, you might need many cameras. You might need a couple cameras, a camera on the presenter and a camera on the audience. And that's where you can take advantage of something like Epiphan, right? With a device like a Pearl. So I don't know, Nick, maybe you can speak to that a little bit of how Pearl enables you to sort of aggregate all those audio and video sources that you might have in the room.
Well, I mean, you're right on top of where I was thinking. The key word, you set it up with pedagogy. We start talking about that learning experience. Dr. Ford talks about the importance of engaging, the importance of the production value. But what I also then want to remind everybody is those rooms get used for all kinds of different functions throughout the day. So as a mechanical engineering student, very different needs than my wife as an occupational therapy student needed in that space. And the word pedagogy is about that learning style and the way we teach to link to the topic we're teaching. Therein lies the magic of the Pearl products. We can take any video source, any audio source from anywhere in the world, from any type of device. And what we can do is create different layouts or scenes. I might say, for a therapy class, I need to have an overhead camera that's going to help me see first person what the instructor is doing at that table, magnifying it both around the room and for folks that can't be there. But then when somebody else comes in for a science class or a law class or a medical class, they all can change and shift around. And that helps to make sure that the students are getting the richest possible experience while the professors don't have to think about it. And that's the key to me. Again, simplicity is the word. Anybody else in the industry that you talk about creating those experiences, they're going to tell you to grab a checkbook and it's going to take them 6 months. And I'll tell you right now, we can set it up in 2 hours in anybody's location anywhere in the world. I'll take that challenge happily with anybody that's on the call.
Just to share an example, I was working with a customer a while back who wanted to do training in their facility. They wanted to create these sort of training events where virtual audience would be able to join a robotics repair station and be able to participate in the repair of some advanced robotics. And the challenge that they were having was, once you get into the circuit board of a robot, you need to be able to see pretty close. And how do I have the camera that can see down into the circuit board to be able to do some like soldering of a PCB while simultaneously being able to talk to my audience and have them engage with me and talk to me. And what we were able to do is solve it with Zoom and Epiphan, because we were able to capture all of those video feeds and cameras. We were able to capture the microphone, but we're also able to create a Zoom experience where the audience can see and engage with the instructor at the same time. And Dr. Ford, I'm sure you encounter this all the time. What are some of the challenges that you see people overcoming to level up their events?
Well, part of it is the fear factor, and Nick has eloquently talked about this already. It's the fear factor of a level of difficulty in driving technology. One of the things that I get to hear a lot from people who talk about Zoom is when they say they like Zoom, the phrase that usually follows is, it just works, right? They love it because they click, to your point, and they're in. That's all there is to it. So as they start to bring in multiple camera feeds and they start to explore really what all can we do in this space. I mean, if I need to get down here on the floor and work on something, what does that mean to me as a faculty member? Could you see that? Could you experience that with me? And the thing that Epiphan brings is really the opportunity to give me a professional experience with multiple cameras. Now, Dan, I'm going to just kind of go off for just 1 second here, because we're talking about obviously multiple physical cameras, but when we explore tools like, let's say, a Zoom room, with a Zoom room, I can get multiple gallery images, aka streams, from each individual who's positioned around a table back into a Zoom meeting. So it's one camera, up to 6 feeds simultaneously. You guys then have the power to parse those 6 feeds as individual participants into these amazing layouts, muxing the images together, overlaying the content, putting people side by side, maybe in a corner, who are far removed from each other physically in the room, but one camera can send all of that in. And so the sky is truly the limit for folks who are willing to take a step back, not overcomplicate things, and just start to use the tool.
Fantastic. It's really enabling so much more richness to the experience. And you'll see, I've got us in a 3-up layout right now. Creating something like this is really, I kind of liken it to creating a PowerPoint, except you've got video sources, right? If you're familiar with PowerPoint, where you're just clicking and dragging things into a layout, very similar with Epiphan. And when you pair that with something that has the connectivity of Zoom, it just opens all of these awesome possibilities.
Well, I just like to
I'm
say, like, I think the three ways to think about it, Dan, is hybrid learning or hybrid events. So I want to take multiple cameras, but engage with the constituents afar. And we understand that the importance of that is that stage, right? Having that great stage experience, but giving people the ability to raise their hand in Zoom and be able to speak to the pastor, speak to the professor, speak to the trainer, speak to the whoever it is. That's the first thing I think is really important. The second thing I want to say is I just want to continue to reframe events. We're doing the creme de la creme here. We're showing multiple switches and layouts. Most folks use this technology based on the type of event they're having for the full hour, and they set and forget. So if you're having a group study versus a lecture versus a hands-on versus a lab, they'll go in and choose their pedagogy, their experience they want right on the touch panel of the device, right there on something you can touch and feel, touch the button, say what you want it to do, and then get on to doing what you do best, which is delivering your message and your story to the world. And I'll just encourage everybody out there that if they just want to take their delivery a step above the sea of tiles inside of Zoom, then this is the great opportunity while still leveraging the greatness of Zoom. So I think it's fun to continue to explore the ways people are communicating, bridging both the togetherness and the afar, and making that a real kind of connection.
fantastic. I do want to give a nod over to chat right now. I do see a bunch of folks who have questions coming in. I see Alfonso and Fareed and Golden Triangle. Great to see you. John, great to see you as well. I'm going to get to all of your questions a little later in the program. So please stick around. We've got just another segment before we get into kind of the after show, and we'll have a Q&A, and our experts are going to hang out and we'll chat for as long as you guys want to. But before we get to that, one of the things that I notice, and with you, Dr. Ford, is as you're moving around your room, we're getting great audio, which is something that's incredibly important when you're in a larger space. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to bring in our next guest. And joining me all the way from Riga, Latvia, is Alexei. Alexei, thanks for joining.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So Alexei, you are with Catchbox, and I first kind of encountered Catchbox in person. And here's a Catchbox, by the way. What is this magical device? I first encountered Catchbox, actually, I think in person at Infocom last year at the Avixa events. And there was a sort of a floor broadcast taking place for Avixa where there was, a fully crewed program happening, but there was a live audience. And it was a large space with a lot of different sounds happening, as you can imagine, at a trade floor. And what I saw was people are tossing. Let me switch to my full camera so that we can see a little better. People are tossing this box around. And, this thing is like soft and plush and light. And people are tossing it around. And I realized, geez, that is a microphone, and they're using it to capture audio. So maybe you can tell me a little bit more about what is Catchbox and what Catchbox is, the purpose of Catchbox is, and what it's trying to accomplish.
Absolutely, yeah. So happy you saw the product in action. And actually, speaking about Catchbox as a company, we're already been around for more than 11 years now, and we've come a long way from what we were in the past 11 years ago. It just started as this soft cube throwable microphone. Specifically, as you mentioned, to mic up events or large auditoriums, right? And what we strive to do now is to create spaces where people are present. And by spaces, we don't necessarily mean physical spaces, also virtual spaces like a hybrid environment, right? And by present, and this really matches all the values that Dr. Ford and Nick told today, is being actually present, being there, listening and actively participating, and then going out of the event or a classroom remembering what was said. And that's the main goal, right? And how do we achieve it? Well, we are professional audio system, right? So that's what we do. We stand for audio, and we have our own Catchbox Plus system. This microphone, soft cube-shaped, very light microphone, travels all across the room to participants to actually mic up every person in the room. And then this microphone is a clip microphone, basically a lavalier to mic up the moderator or the main speaker or a teacher in the classroom. And we also stand for simplicity. We try to make the products as simple as possible, and we think a lot about the end user when we design the products. So yeah, that's us.
Fantastic. You know what I think is really cool is like it stimulates engagement, right? It's fun. It's kind of, sometimes it can be hard to break the ice at an event and get people engaged in talking. And when you have something that, like this, that is like a physical object that can kind of act as, almost like a football or something, how would you describe it?
Yeah, absolutely. It serves like a totem, basically, that you can pass around, and the physicality of it is actually the beauty, because when you see the physical object, you know who's talking, both for people in the room, but also on Zoom, right? So you can actually see who's the person from the audience is talking. But it's also very good for audio. So we believe that engagement is not only about this fun element of throwing it around and opening up, but it's also about the audio. So you need to hear really crisp, clear audio to be engaged. If you can't hear it, then you're disengaged, and all the fatigue that you have on Zoom comes in. So that's why this physical object that travels around, and it actually creates this microphone in close proximity to the speaker, that's the thing that actually makes it or breaks it for hybrid events or hybrid lectures.
Yeah, well, I love that because, the way that you guys have set this up, and we had a chance to test it in our office, and very impressed with kind of how the system works. So there's like a charging dock that the cube sits on. And then for the lavalier, it's like a wireless charging dock as well. So the result is that you can just walk into the room, pick it up, and it's ready to go. You don't have to, fiddle with any complicated buttons, or, it's very, very user friendly. But then the other thing is that, you can kind of just get that confidence that when you're in a space that everyone's getting great audio, and that your remote participants and your in-person participants are both getting an equal experience, which is so important. You don't want to invite a virtual audience into your in-person event and have them not be able to hear half of what's going on. So to me, this is solving a critical problem to be able to expand the reach of our events and to be able to engage more people and create a better experience for everyone. So just like super impressed with the user experience of this audio system. And as well, you did mention that, this is a professional quality microphone, and that's the sort of the experience that we had with it when we were testing it in our office. So yeah, just a ton of fun. And I love that you have the branding and everything. So really well done. So just briefly, like, what can we expect from Catchbox in the future? And, what does the roadmap look like for Catchbox?
Yeah, that's a good question. And yeah, actually, we are currently present in large spaces. So this is where we operate. We know how hard it is to mic up a large space, or in general, audio in large spaces is super hard. And there are physical limitations. It's all about physics, right? You need to get close proximity to the microphone to get actually good audio. So this is what we're doing now. So we have already 2 microphones, but we're going to continue doing that, and we're going to have more audio products that mainly cover the large spaces, and just making sure that you can hear everybody in the room and the experience is great. And actually experience for everybody, both the technical personnel who have to install the product and then maintain the product on a day-to-day basis. As you mentioned, this feature of just picking it up from a charger. For teachers, there's no learning curve. You don't have to train teachers that hard. And then they place it back on the charger and it's charged the next morning, right? So there's no maintenance as well for the technical people, but also the experience for the end user, being the presenter, the teacher, the audience, the students, right? So it's easy as that, and that's what we strive with any product that we create. And in the future, we're gonna stay in that space potentially, and help out actually solving the large room and medium to large room audio.
Fantastic. Alexei, thanks for giving us the crash course on Catchbox. Really excited to see what comes next for your company. And that kind of, why don't we switch gears a little bit now? I do see a lot of activity in the chat, and I want to start to get to that. So I'm actually going to switch back. We'll bring Nick and Dr. Ford back now. And, this is kind of the end of our program in terms of, the segments we had planned, but we're here to hang out for about another 15-20 minutes if anybody wants to ask your questions and engage with our expert panel here. And in fact, we do have a way that if you are brave enough, if you want to engage with us directly, I've put a link on screen, epiphan.com/live. And I would love it if anybody wants to actually join us on the Zoom call that we're having in the background and actually come on camera with us live and interact with us here. It's really, we've made it as smooth and seamless as possible. You're just going to go to that link, and it's not to worry. You won't be dropped right into being on camera with all of us immediately. We have Marta in the green room who will be there to greet you, and then we'll bring you in into our program from there, and Marta will give you some instructions. So but before we get to that, why don't we just take a look at chat here and see some questions coming in. So the first question I have here is from Alfonso Gonzalez. And Alfonso says, we use a black magic encoder at our church. Can we just use Epiphan Connect to work with what we have? Or would we need a Pearl? Also, what would be the benefits of a Pearl? What would be the benefits of Pearl? Thank you. So Nick, maybe that's a good question for you to start off. Someone, a house of worship that's currently using Blackmagic, can they use Connect? And what would be the advantages of considering using Pearl?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that makes Pearl really special is it's bidirectional. So what I'm holding up here is the Pearl Nano. We've talked about the Pearl Mini extensively on the show. It handles 3 channels of audio. This is a single channel encoder. And the beauty of it is that you can use it as an appliance to translate Zoom meeting isolated views or combo views into a single HDMI out into your existing production board. If your existing Blackmagic gear supports SRT, a very common kind of protocol, then you can certainly directly connect our cloud solutions to the device using SRT. But if the device is a little bit older, if it's a little bit dumber, just isn't the latest and greatest, no need to rip and replace anything. This device works really well to kind of work in that workflow. If you look at your space and you also think about beyond the idea of just bringing in, Connect brings somebody to stage, right? The 4 of us are on a stage together. You can also use our capture cards to push into a PC to connect with constituents so that they're in the audience. That's a great way to engage quickly and effectively using all that Pro AV gear that you have back to the Zoom folks. And then the records and the ISOs are just so valuable when you think about post-event, doing cut downs, being able to have kind of a sizzle reel or a summary, or as Dr. Ford can attest to, what we call asynchronous learning. The ability for people that couldn't make it or maybe missed part of it, or more importantly, maybe that night they're reflecting on what they learned that day and they think to themselves, I really wish I could go back and listen to that. Now you can do all of those things at the same time with a relatively inexpensive lift. And the thing that I'll just keep reminding everybody, it's simple. It's volunteer friendly. This is stuff that's very, very easy to manage.
Fantastic. I do see we do have someone who is calling in live. Actually, we've got a couple people lined up. But before we get to that, while we're getting them connected, I do have a couple more chat questions. So I'll just take the second chat question here. This is a question from Fareed Khan. Fareed had a question about Epiphan Cloud. Do we have any speech-to-text captioning? I can answer that. So Epiphan actually does have a product called Livescrypt, and you can find that on our website. And I would encourage you to check that out. It's a really great live speech-to-text tool that can accurately in real time transcribe in a whole bunch of different languages. So maybe take a look at that, Fareed, and see if it kind of suits your needs. And if you have more questions, don't hesitate to reach out. And I'm just waiting now to get our call-in guests connected. So we've got George and Marta in the background getting people queued up. I think we've got Michelle coming up. So we'll wait until she's connected. I'll take a couple more chat questions. Here's a question from John D, and maybe this is one to direct to you, Alexei. We do a lot of church streaming installations. Do you have tips on how to mic a larger room, such as a church? The issue is some churches want to talk back and forth with folks at home. That sounds like it might be something that you'd have some experience with that you'd have seen before.
Absolutely. Yeah, so we have quite a lot of churches actually using Catchbox, and it's really great that you have two microphones that you can either both can travel around the audience. So if you have a really large room, so both cubes can travel around, or you can have the dynamics where you need to actually have a moderator and an audience, then the clip mic and the cube mic really good. And it also creates like an environment where you can do the captioning live, because you can capture any voice from the audience, and do speech to text as well on the go, and perhaps also some translations on the go. So yeah, absolutely, we do see quite a lot of churches using Catchbox.
Okay, fantastic. When you have such a large space as a church, I know there are other large scale audio capture solutions, but in many cases what I've seen is
pretty.
They're not pretty. They're way, you have to install them either way up on a ceiling, or they cost exorbitant amount of money to install, and you need professional installation just to get them in place. And with something like a church, you might need many microphones to capture. So to me, I just see this as like a quick and easy hack to work around that.
Well, I'll just say for folks that are out there, if you wonder about the economics of it, I mean, you could have probably a high-end PTC camera, Catchbox, and a Nano in your church, community hall, K through 12, and you're under 10K. And the nice part about it is, sneak a peek, we got scheduling coming here soon. We'll be talking about that more and more in the coming months, which means your volunteers can set up a schedule of events. To the point Alexei's made, the humans walk into the room, they grab the devices, they're charged, they use them in a natural way, right? It makes sense. It's branded to the organization. There's connection there. We tie it all back to the remote guests that can't be there, capture it for later, stream it out for people it's a really approachable and affordable solution. Because the question that we always have to remind ourselves, and this is what always makes me a little crazy about the tech industry, is everything's possible. It's all time resources, right? It's money. So sometimes the simplicity is the part that's just totally missed on everybody. And Dr. Ford, you have to see it all the time.
Yeah, I do, Nick. Part of the challenge always is people who come in and over-engineer spaces for the purpose of wanting to come back to those spaces, right? And from a Zoom perspective, the goal is always, what does the end user want? What does the end user need? And how can we get it to them as quickly and easily as possible? Eric's mantra here at Zoom, our CEO, is we want everyone to meet happy. We want you to be happy when you're there. We want it to be a frictionless experience and get done the business that you came to do, not discuss the technology. Then it becomes ineffective if you're spending your time discussing
it. Amen.
Okay. I do see now we have a guest joining us, and Michelle, thank you for joining us on this event. Great to have you here. Michelle, where are you joining us from?
I'm in Los Angeles at UCLA Law School.
Oh, fantastic. Thanks for being here. And maybe just before we get to any questions or what you'd like to speak about, could you tell us about what your experience was actually connecting into our event today and walk us through that a little bit?
Was really easy. So I opened that link that you sent. Marta let me into what was a Zoom meeting, sort of gave me an idea of, well, where I'd have to sit or what would come next. And then she handed me another link, which brought me here.
Awesome. So that's kind of what we're aiming for, is like that seamless connectivity, and to be able to bring people in and create that engagement regardless of where you are, whether you're in person or virtual. So we've got a great panel here. Is there anything that you'd like to chat about with us?
I mean, my reason for joining was just to sort of peek behind the curtain and see what was going on there.
Absolutely.
I think I'm most interested in really how you are integrating between Epiphan and Zoom. Like, what was that sort of connection like? But I don't expect you to demonstrate that here.
Yeah. Well, I think if you saw the very beginning of the program, I showed that a little bit, where essentially what we do is we use a tool called Epiphan Connect. And with that, we can, you see now you're in a normal or completely ordinary Zoom meeting, but we're able to use our tool to pull you out of that Zoom meeting and send you to any other audio video production tools like a Pearl Mini, and to be able to create this sort of program where we have layouts and we can customize and brand our event. So, we've tried to make that as easy as possible. There's some really advanced technology under the hood powering that, but at its core, it's just an easy and reliable way to extract audio and video sources from Zoom and bring them into your production or bring them into your video event. So
that's really cool. We're looking forward. We have some Epiphans here, quite a few, and we're really looking forward to expanding our use of them.
Oh, fantastic. Now I might have a couple questions for you at UCLA. Like, what are some of the challenges that you face when you're trying to create a great event experience for people at your school?
Manpower is probably the key one. I mean, I think audio is always the biggest thing. I mean, Alexis, we actually have a Catchbox as well, that we've been toying with. So I think that's audio is always a big issue for events.
And I will say this, Dan, just selfish plug here. Looks like Michelle has a D10, D7.
Yeah, I do. Sorry. Yeah, I do, Lance. Although your playroom is much more fancy than mine.
No, that's a great tool. A great tool for annotation, a great tool for the camera that's built into it. And obviously now it's a great tool that can become a source for Epiphan Connect. So look forward to seeing that D10 in an upcoming Epiphan Connect sponsored event.
Well, thanks, Michelle, for joining us, and it was great to have you. Great to have you here. I hope you're getting great weather over in California. I'm sure you are. And please don't hesitate to come and join us again. We do these events all the time, and I'd love to hear more about everything that's happening at.
By the way, we'll see you next week at the HETMA event there at UCLA.
Okay, you guys are coming out here for Joe's HETMA. All right.
Happy to show you how you can take that existing setup and do these types of hybrid events, and happy to demonstrate it personally when I'm there. It's that really, because you hit something that's really important: the humans.
That's right.
One of the fears that exists out there, and it's just really important to acknowledge it, right? For everybody's sake, we've got to breathe through this. Is that I've been on the receiving end of being asked to put technology in space, and it's not the deployment of the technology; it's owning the technology day two, and all the noise and kerfuffle and anger, and you name the emotions that come along with it. So we've all been trained to be resistant to some of these things, and that's where I think the Epiphan story is just so powerful, because that idea of being volunteer friendly, which means if you are an expert, you're going to find it really easy to use. So excited to see you next week and share more with you on that.
All right, great.
Cheers.
Thanks, Michelle. I'm going to take one more text question, then we have another caller joining us. We've got John, but let me see what's coming in here on chat. Okay, maybe this is a good question sort of towards you, Dr. Ford, but Dave Gallagher was wondering about trying to manage multiple feeds from a remote location that's away from your talent. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how Zoom enables you to sort of take advantage of multiple feeds and multiple cameras, or, being able to connect a bunch of things at once?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question. In the Zoom room world, specifically, and we can go wherever you want to. We can take a follow-up on this if you want to. In the Zoom room world, because it's a resource inside a space, just like everything else that Zoom does, that software is managed in the cloud. So while I have an actual physical controller here for my Zoom room, the multiple sources plugged into it, the layouts, the formats of how the video is parsed, all as one gallery image or multiple gallery images. It can be driven here, but that exact same touch interface is available via the web URL. So I can drive my Zoom room experience from anywhere, and typically will drive multiples simultaneously. In fact, he keeps calling me Dr. Ford. My PhD is in educational administration and curriculum, and I did that for the University of Oklahoma. I'm 7 hours round trip removed from that campus. 4 years of my life in this chair as the remote driver of weekend classes as a part of my teaching assistantship. So that whole experience does not require that I'm physically on site to make that happen.
Fantastic. Such a powerful and ubiquitous technology with Zoom. I want to switch over now. We've got another caller. I want to get to them quick. We're kind of reaching the end of our event. I don't want to keep everyone too long, but I do see a familiar face here. Joining us now is John Porterfield. John, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody. This has been a great presentation. I really appreciate the opportunity to kind of just jump in here just for a moment. And this has been great to kind of learn a little bit more about, I think, the interaction with Zoom and some of the aspects of what we're talking about today in terms of that, and obviously the integration with Epiphan. On the Catchbox, one of the questions I had was, and it may have already been covered, is there a way to capture the audio as its own ISO on the Catchbox system in terms of like for, post editing and production, if you needed to pull something for, just archiving purposes to clean up some audio in case something didn't go correctly? Does it record on the device itself?
Absolutely. So we don't do the recording itself on our receiver, but you can connect the receiver to any multimedia capture device, be it just a computer, because we have a USB out, right? Or to any recording device, for example, as Nick showing, and we have analog outputs. We also have Dante, so you can feed it into network and then record there. So it's possible to do that. And then lecture capture is, for example, one of the examples, of course.
No, that's great. I think that's great, the usefulness of that. And I guess separate from an educational perspective, in terms of a live conference of on stage form, I would assume that you can have two of the transmitters that you have on, that you're wearing one of them right now. So if you have more than one speaker, they can communicate through the system, and obviously then field the questions like from the audience in the back of the room and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why we have two channels. They're specifically designed for the interaction between the main speaker and the auditorium, but you can also have, for example, two clip mics or two cubes, or you can daisy chain few systems and then have more channels if you need more dynamic interaction, let's say more rapid fire.
That's fantastic.
The thing that I was highlighting by holding up the Nano, just to, Alexei, to point out that need set, right? You've got XLR out on your devices. We've got XLR in on this device. There you go. And when I describe this thing being bi-directional, for $2,000, it'll take all the audio and video from the room and record it, stream it, take in somebody from, from those multiple areas, bring it in with the equipment you've got. But we can also then use it to bring Connect down to it and use the HDMI out back into your existing production board. So John, when you think about showing up to these events, again, the unpredictable nature of what you're walking into, the combination of technology, the idea here is I think that we've got a really logical segmentation of the technology that works with everybody. And a device like Catchbox will come in and plug in right on top of this. You start to get to really simple solutions. And again, simple is good for the people who like complicated because it removes the stress. It's really great for the folks that are intimidated by all this. And I'd be interested in knowing when we talk sometimes, JP, like what kind of clients are out there that are struggling to make this jump because of that fear, and how this kind of combination will help your constituents, help your clients that are out there.
No, totally. I totally agree. I think that's a good point that you're making, Nick. And I think that's kind of one of the things that we look at in the hybrid events is how do we enable that, communication pathway and ensure that we reduce the complexity, to your point, both from a technical team as well as the people in-house and things that are happening there. And I think that's one of the continued areas that we need to, and obviously with Zoom and other these elements kind of come together is, being able to produce something that looks great online and people can connect virtually as well as who's in-house and being able to do that. So totally.
I love it. And I think, John, what you just said kind of summarizes a lot of what we've been talking about today is like, we want to create these powerful hybrid experiences with lots of engagement and lots of participation and be able to brand it and create like something that looks like, what traditionally might have looked like a television show. And it's always been possible to do that, but it's like, how do we actually enable it? We have to make it easy enough. We have to make it, intuitive enough. And that's why, whether it's Zoom, whether it's Catchbox or Epiphan, all of these tools and kind of why we've assembled this panel that we have today is it's all about making it intuitive. And, and I know that you do a lot of work in House of Worship where in many cases, it's volunteers who are operating the technology on a weekly basis. And we can't expect them to have to be able to, get under the hood and do complicated tasks to be able to start and stop an event. So that's really, I think, if there's a takeaway theme of what we've done, what we've shared today is that, you can get really great results without needing lots of complexity. And that's, I think, what we could all agree to here. I think we're running out of time, and I know Dr. Ford, you have to get going. But maybe any final thoughts, John, yourself? What's your sort of takeaway?
I think my takeaway is that it really kind of gives, I think, go back to your point, the telling the story, so to speak, whether it's a house of worship or some other type of event that we're looking at is, I think what's been interesting for me, especially with the Zoom rooms and things like that, and other technologies that are coming into place along with Epiphan, is how do we tell the story better? How do we leverage these tools to enable that? And obviously, reduce the complexity, both for the talent in-house and people that are involved in the process. So I'm excited about just, diving more into this. I think as we talk more about where Zoom and these elements come into along with Epiphan, it really kind of looks at, you and I have talked offline about some of these things, these scenarios of how we enable that, even in watch parties or other elements that we can, from a creativity perspective, we can help enable the connectiveness or the community aspect with these efforts. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Amazing. I think we're going to have to end it there. I'm sure we could keep going for another hour with all the brains we have in the room here, but we'll have to have another event in the future where we can.
I pause for 1 second on one thing?
Yes.
Bravo to you, by the way. What just happened for everybody that watched? And let's just remember this. Dan walks onto the show, sets everything up. We've got a live interactive guest with JP, followed by somebody else, and he's been switching the whole thing himself and doing the graphics all from his desk. So when we talk about simplicity and ease, we're not saying it and doing a different thing. Dan's demonstrating it. So bravo, Dan. Thank you so much, man. What
Absolutely.
Really,
kudos to Dan.
pleasure.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right, Nick. And I think that's the key takeaway note is being able to produce something and do that. You don't have to physically be in there. Dan's doing this remotely, right? And I think this is where we talk about remote productions and things like that. Conversation for another time, but absolutely kudos to Dan and to you guys.
Thanks a lot. And with that, why don't I just give one more view, just like over my shoulder as I say goodbye to everyone. This is where I've been the whole time. I've got a Zoom call where I'm talking to everyone, and I've got a switcher where I've got all those layouts that you saw in the presentation today. And that's really all there was to it. So if you're looking to connect with us in the future and learn more about how to create intuitive, engaging hybrid events in person, connect your remote and in-person participants and audiences, whether it's Epiphan, whether it's Zoom or Catchbox, there's really great intuitive tools and ways to do this. So don't hesitate to connect with us. You can reach us on LinkedIn, on Facebook, all the social places, and stay tuned for more events in the future. And we'll see you again soon. So thanks for joining, and say bye for now.